Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now if you're watching this, you're either a recent computer science graduate and you've been struggling to find a job, or you are still studying and you kind of want to know what's the process like, or what should you do while you're studying or when you've completed your job, or maybe you just find this video topic interesting and you want to learn more. So in this video, we're going to go over exactly the steps that you need to take to not guarantee yourself a job, but definitely increase your chances substantially for computer science specifically. So let's get into it. Now, what I've done over here is I've just searched, what can you do with a computer science degree? Just a general question. And as you can see, many options have appeared. Of course, this list is not the final be all and end all list. This is just a random examples, but what I'm trying to illustrate here is computer science is extremely broad, and that means when you're learning it at university for your degree, they can only touch briefly on many different fields, right? You're not getting that in-depth knowledge for one specific field that you actually need for the job. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is sort of decide which niche you want to go into, and at most you should pick 2 or 3. If you only do one thing, that's fine, but maybe 2 as a backup is good, but 3 is kind of pushing it. So for this video, we're just going to assume you're going to pick 2 niches, and I think as an illustration, let's just assume that you want to be a data analyst and you want to be a web developer. Let's now move on to the next step. Now, next step, as you can see, we've gone over to LinkedIn. Now, everyone watching this should probably know what LinkedIn is. If you don't, you should definitely go ahead and do some research, some entry-level research on what it is. It's basically a social media page for people in the workforce, if that makes sense at all. But I'm probably going to blur out my personal profile on the left-hand side for privacy reasons. But okay, next step is, if you don't already have a LinkedIn profile, you are going to want to make one, even if it's just a basic one for now that has bare bones information of where you're studying, what degree you have, just the basic stuff, any experience if you have any. But yeah, don't worry about that now. What we actually want to use it for is the search tab for our careers, okay? And we have chosen data analyst and web developer. So let's go ahead and search data analyst. Give it a second, and these are all data analyst jobs that show up. I'm currently in Pretoria, so all my searches will be for Pretoria. Yours might be wherever. You could search for the whole of South Africa if you really want. But okay, we're gonna go now one by one. For example, we'll see here, this is some Nile.ag, never heard of this company, but they're looking for a data science intern. We're going to go for the more tab. We're going to look at the requirements. Okay, cool. These are kind of basic requirements because it's a internship, but let's look at the ideal requirements. This looks more what we're looking for. Studying towards or has completed computer science, that's going to be a given for all of these because obviously this video is catered towards computer science. But this is the information that's really important to you. Is comfortable working with data in Excel, SQL, Python, or similar tools. What you're going to do now is you're going to whip out a notepad on, your phone, your computer, paper and pen, and you're going to write down these skills that the companies are looking for. Has an interest in BI, business informatics or something, I'm not too sure, analytics, operations, or product thinking, whatever. The more important stuff is these skills. You're gonna go line by line. So next one, let's go over here, database programming development. So that's, you could read that, that's more SQL stuff again. Data analysis and reporting, education and skills, here we go. SQL Server certifications or SAS, quantitative skills, data mining, modeling, coding, things of that nature. Let's go find another one. Maybe this one's a senior data analyst, so probably stay away from that. Senior, it's a software developer, maybe a research analyst for banking. Actually, let's click on this data quality specialist. Why not? Let's have a look. Skills required. Ignore the years of experience, right? Who cares? You're just here for the skills. If you can learn these skills while still being in university or being a recent graduate, then even better. Strong data analysis, validation, data quality skills, those are all very broad. They don't really list exactly what you want to do. If it's too broad, you can always Google, what are some tools to use? What are the most popular tools to use for data visualization? One is like Tableau, for example. You can do things like that to find out the exact skills, but okay. Let's have a look at web developer now. And remember, you're writing this down all in a notebook or wherever. Here we have some junior developer, great. Okay. I don't know, they messed up the HTML with this. It doesn't look very good, but whatever. Requirement, knowledge of JavaScript, React JS, REST APIs. Suppose you're interested in Zoho Creator, never heard of that. Zoho CRM, Zoho Tools, whatever, you can do the research on that. I got no clue. We got an intern developer at the same company, mid-level, senior, full stack backend developer. This one actually shows the pay. They want PHP, REST APIs, Git, MySQL, Postgres. You get the idea, okay? We're not going to go too far into this, but the idea is you just want a general list of what are the companies looking for? What skills are they looking for in a developer? Because 9 times out of 10, your university did not cover these skills. And that's just how it is. Like I say, they're very broad. You need to specialize in your own time and you need to learn these skills in your own time, okay? Now, where do you actually learn these skills? Well, YouTube has great tutorials. That is the best free place. I mean, if you want to spend a bit of money on more of a structured course, you could go on something like Udemy, right? I just loaded up here, Udemy. Udemy does all kinds of different courses. You literally just search up here, especially with IT related stuff. Again, let's say data analytics, okay? I'll search it up, let it load. I mean, here's a bunch of courses. They're all like around 200 Rand. These are very structured. You could watch like the intro video. They show you, everything you need. Here you go, Python, stats, Gen AI, SQL, Excel, Power BI, Tableau, everything that we were talking about. It has that course and you'll get a little certification. You could say you did this course on Udemy, blah, blah, blah. And there you go. You have the skills, okay? So that is the next step, is actually obtaining the skills that will make you desirable for these businesses. Now let's move on to the next step. Okay, the next step is to head over to GitHub. Now, if you don't know what GitHub is, you really need to learn what it is and how to use it in a basic sense. You could watch one YouTube video on the basic commands and how to, just get a project up and running and commit to it, pull from it. Yeah, the basic stuff that companies are looking for, because most companies nowadays use GitHub as a control source for your projects, because it allows many people to work on the same projects together, and you're going to use it to host your projects that you make and to actually display them on your CV for employers to see. So now that you have learned those skills that we mentioned in the previous step, you're going to want to head over to GitHub and make a new project with those skills and make sure that this project actually showcases those new skills that you learned, and could even be, related to some of the industries that you've been looking at on LinkedIn. For example, if most of the data analytics positions you look at on LinkedIn is for, let's say, the banking industry or the finance industry, what you can do is you can make a GitHub project centered around the finance industry and using those skills that they mentioned right over there in the advert. And if you're brain dead, you don't have any good ideas, you're stuck, you're not creative, literally AI good project ideas for the finance industry or, whatever involving these skills, give me step by step the project idea, right? Don't let it do the project, just let it give you an idea. And once you're done with that project and you post it to GitHub, it is now ready for your CV, which we will say is the next step, Okay, so now that we have learned those new skills that we need for the job, we've added them to our GitHub, we maybe have a certification or two or a course or two that we've completed. The next thing we want to do is actually create our CV. Now, what makes a good CV for computer science in general? Okay, first of all, as you can see, I have this one-page CV, and that's very important, right? You either want a one-page, or at most, rarely do I recommend a two-page one unless you're amazing and you've got this massive list of work experience, which shouldn't happen if you're a recent graduate or you're still in university. Most of the time you want one page, because for computer scientists, we just want that concise information. What skills do you have? What work experience? What projects? And that's really it, Where did you go to university? Did you get cum laude? Did you get award? Those kind of information is important, okay? As you can see, there's no picture. We don't care how you look as a computer scientist. We don't even care about your name, your gender, none of that, right? For computer scientists, the skills is all that matters. So one page is generally what you want to aim for 99% of the time. This is just some generic one-page CV, but it looks pretty good. Has your name. I don't know about the title, okay? I would probably remove that because you're unemployed, right? You can't call yourself a web developer. What does that mean? You're unemployed. But contact information, definitely useful, okay? Your links, like to your LinkedIn, because you made your LinkedIn page earlier. But I would also add over here your GitHub link so people can view your projects. Definitely important, put your GitHub link there. If you have like a website as a, let's say an about me page or showcasing some of your projects as well, link that there, okay? Education tab, put your highest education only, okay? So don't put high school. As you can see, this person just put this is some USA, so they just put their Bachelor of Science degree. But in South Africa, we have Bachelor of Science and then we have our honors. If you did both, I would recommend that you actually put both on your CV, your Bachelor and your honors, okay? If you have masters, put all three on. PhD, put all four on. All your tertiary education I would put on. That kind of makes sense to me. And put your percentage that you achieved, okay? That's also important. If you got cum laude or any sort of awards, if you got a scholarship, etc., put that on. Put the year that you graduated as well. That's maybe important. If you want, you could like upload your results to some online hosting website and then put a link here to them, but that's not too important. Most jobs, they want you to send that in separately, okay? The skills section is extremely important. A lot of companies that have the AI scanning stuff that won't even read the full batch of CVs unless they've been pruned down will use AI to scan for the skills. So definitely put, I don't know what this hard and soft skill nonsense is. Soft skills, just get rid of that. That's useless, okay? We want to know your actual skills. JavaScript, Python. What's your stack? SQL, REST API, that's React. Maybe if you work with Agile or Scrum systems, or you could put Git on here. Literally anything that you think would be useful that you saw on the LinkedIn job listings, put down here if you obviously know how to do that skill. You don't want to lie now, do you? You'll get exposed real quick, okay? The career objective, I would get rid of that section and replace it with maybe a short summary. We're all very technical computer scientists, but who are we as a person? What interests us? What kind of job are we looking for? What kind of atmosphere do we want to be in? Put that down there. What are your aspirations in life? Who are you? Are you ambitious? Things of that nature. Work experience, if you have any, put it there, obviously. These bullet points should be short summaries of what you did, maybe a sentence or two of what you did, and then a sentence or two of how it helped the company. That is extremely important. Like you could say something like, you developed a new backend algorithm for sorting, I don't know, people that bought dog food. Could be anything. And then the next sentence, this decreased checkout latency by 50%, right? Something like that. That's obviously a ridiculous example, but you get the idea. 1 or 2 sentences of what you did, 1 or 2 sentences of how it helped the company. That's very important, okay? If we read this, built an internal book recommendation app in Node.js, blah, blah, replacing a manual curation workflow for editorial staff. Okay, that's great, but did that actually help the company, Was that a problem to begin with, or was it just useless work, You could say that in the next sentence that it decreased the time that the employee spent on that by so many hours or so many percentage every week, Again, you're appealing to business people. These people want to see how you saved money, how you made more money. That's it. That's all business people care about, right? They want the numbers. So yeah, that's very important for work experience, and also internships. If you have any, put them there, okay? Projects. Now, if you don't have any work experience, you're going to have a decent amount of projects, either 3 or 4. If you have work experience, you might not need to put the projects, but honestly, I would still put projects there because it shows you have some sort of initiative outside of your work space or outside of university. And these projects are very important. As we mentioned previously, they need to align with sort of what you're interested in and the skills that you have deemed to be important to companies. Same concept, you kind of just give a rough rundown of what the project is and how it can be useful, how it helped people. This one's great, grew the free tool to 517 monthly active users. I mean, that's massive. Things like that seem impressive to users, just think logically. Also, I would definitely put a link underneath the title or next to the title to the GitHub repository for this project. That makes it easier for manual human reviewers to just quickly go and click there and boom, there's the project. Okay. And apart from that, you don't need anything else on your CV. They could put another section underneath the skills for certifications or courses that you completed. That's also useful. I would definitely add that. But yeah, that should be the CV. And now you're ready to actually apply for positions. So how do we do that? Let's get into it. Now, as you can see, we're back on LinkedIn and it's time to actually apply for jobs. So we've already gone over this before. You search, let's say, data analyst and give it some time. Some of them will have this little easy apply icon. If you do that, it's very easy because if you have your CV already uploaded to LinkedIn, then you just click the button, send your CV and done, that's it. Others will maybe redirect you to their website. If you click on it, you'll see you go to their website and you will apply there. Okay, so LinkedIn is one of the websites you can use. However, do note that LinkedIn is very competitive, okay? As you can see, I mean, some of these, I wish we could find a new one. Here we go, 2 weeks ago, over 100 applicants already. It's very competitive, okay? So honestly, I would still use it, right? Because you want to increase your chances as much as possible, but I wouldn't rely on it for your main source, okay, for finding a job. Now, there are some other websites like Indeed, for example. Let's say I search data analyst here, Pretoria. Same concept. We click on one we like, we look at the description. Does it make sense for a new graduate? Honestly, if they ask for 1 or 2 years of experience, I would still apply anyway, right? Like, what's the harm? The worst they could say is no. But anyway, you're just going to apply from here as well. But the third website is the secret weapon, okay? Not many people know about this website, and it's actually really good for finding a job, and that is Pnet. Now, Pnet does not have a lot of competition, and usually you're dealing directly with the recruiters and they respond very quickly to your applications, okay? Pnet is the secret weapon for finding a job, all right? So let's say we search data analyst here again and Victoria, whatever, find a job, give it some time, okay? Here we go. Most of the Pnet ones, they actually show you the salaries, which is very nice, okay? So let's say you want to do this one. You'll have to make an account, but we'll just assume you've done that. You put the I'm interested and you can apply then, but Pnet responds very quickly, and Pnet, like I said, there's very little competition and the jobs are good quality. Like, you can actually see how much money you're going to earn. They're usually transparent with a lot of things. They don't have a lot of interview stages. Pnet's great, okay? But realistically, you want all 3 of these websites every single day. You want to wake up, you want to search for your jobs on these websites, and you want to spam apply, okay? On all of them. If you're not applying to at least 10 jobs a day, you cannot complain that you're unemployed. All right, that's the minimum, in my opinion, is 10 jobs a day, because it usually takes up to 100 applications for you to find a job, right? On average, now maybe if you have your degree, around 100 applications of good quality jobs. And yeah, you need to wake up every single day and just spam apply. If you spam apply to every single job, one of them has to give you an interview. One of them eventually is going to give you a job, and you will be thankful for your effort in the future. Okay? And obviously, once you finish your 10 applications, you're not done for the day. Your job after graduation is to find a job. So after you've done your applications, you're going to continue bettering your skills. You're going to continue learning new skills, working on new projects. Every single day, you're trying to better your CV and make yourself more likely to be employed. This is sort of just like a statistical game. You're just increasing your chances day by day and spam applying, and eventually someone has to give you a chance. Now, let's assume that you've been given that interview. What do you do then? And that's our next segment of the video. Now that you actually have an interview signed up or ready for a company, half of the job is done. The other half is actually passing that interview. So your studying hasn't finished. You should still spam apply every day, but instead of working on the project now, leading up to your interview, you're going to want to study for that interview. Now, just as some general tips and examples, if you're doing like software development, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a LeetCode problem. So obviously you're just going to grind LeetCode. You're going to go over to LeetCode, you're going to go to problems, and you're going to solve them. Okay. The thing to note is most of the companies will ask you medium level questions. So I would focus on those. Very rarely will they ask you hard level questions, and easy is just too easy. Okay. And I'd make sure to get a good range of topics, like dynamic programming, extremely important, array, extremely important, string, greedy, sorting, depth first search, heap, just keep doing every single day random stuff and prepare for the interviews that way for software development. 9 times out of 10, you'll pass there. For data analyst, you can just search general interview questions. As you can see, I found some here. You'll have to Google. You can even ask AI to help, right? Ask AI to give you a massive list of general data analyst questions along with the answers. See if you can, and treat it like a test, like you're studying for an exam. See if you can answer the questions first, and if you can't, check the answer and learn from it like that, okay? Because these are really important. These are generally what they're going to ask you. An important thing to note is for something like data analyst, most of the time, they don't want you to do a practical test on the camera like that or time test. Most of the time, what they do is they give you a take-home assessment. They'll give you a data set and say, the questions are on there, you get this much time, answer the questions as best you can, do it best you can. So, you need to sort of study the job that you're looking for and how they interview for that job. Don't just show up unprepared. You're going to fail, and you're going to go back to the process of applying every single day. And, it's okay if you fail, by the way, and you did study, obviously, because that's most likely going to happen. You're going to fail tons of interviews. You're going to get better at them. And then eventually one day you're going to reach a point where you're able to pass and get that job offer. No one does it first try unless you study really hard or you're lucky or whatever, Like for web development, you can see we have some random questions over here. They don't have the answers, but hey, we have AI to learn from, so that's good. So yeah, you could use AI for that. And important to note, all the interviews will have a technical section and an introduction section about who you are, okay? The technical section you can study for. The introduction, you kind of can by planning, general answers to, what do you enjoy doing in your free time? What kind of job you're looking for? Tell us a bit about yourself. There's always that broad question that they ask. But an important thing to know is you're going to be nervous. It's like an oral, right? Where you're speaking to people. And there's no easy way to get over that other than just doing a bunch of interviews and getting comfortable with speaking about yourself, speaking about your skills and how you can make a difference to the company, and thinking on the spot. You don't want to sit there thinking for too long. It's okay to think for a little bit, but you want to think on the spot, even if it's not the perfect answer. You want to keep the conversation going. That's a very important skill, is those people skills, communication. And if you really are not good with it, then it's time to practice, time to pull a family member aside, a friend aside, have them ask you these questions, and then you give your answer and have them ask follow-up questions that you don't have pre-planned, so that you have to think on the spot for an answer. Okay? As being technical people like computer scientists, for us now, we're not that great at communication skills and people skills. That's not why we got into this business. So it's really important to work at that skill, because for a lot of us, that will be a weakness and it might bomb the interviews. Then there might be a behavioral component or a company fit component for the company. That one, that's out of your hand, right? That's a personality thing. You answer truthfully, and do answer truthfully, because don't lie. It's better to not get that job because you're not a good fit than to lie and get that job and be unhappy and leave after a short period of time. Okay? Do not be desperate if you have your degree and you are qualified. Value your skills. The right job will come eventually. So do not stress, okay? Now, before we conclude this video with our tips, there's one last thing that I want to mention. Okay, so the last topic of conversation for this video, as you can see, we have a robot here, and that is AI, specifically agentic AI, the LLMs, Claude, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Cursor, Copilot, wherever it may be. This has caused a lot of concern with developers, and I just want to spend the last bit of this video talking about my opinions on it, okay? So a lot of people are worried that AI is going to take their jobs, and I just want to say we should not worry about that, and we should continue doing what we're doing and just assume it's not going to happen. And the reason for that is because what I feel is all these AI companies are all making a loss right now, okay? Is that a sustainable business model? No. So why are they happy doing it, and why are they expanding while making a loss? For example, Claude Pro costing $20. The amount of value you get in Claude Pro, it just doesn't seem right. That should be way more than $20. So what are these companies doing? Well, my theory is that they're asking this low price and they're happy making this loss because they're getting the AI out there. They're getting companies reliant on using AI. They're firing developers, whatever. They're making their developers use AI in their daily workflow, their daily development processes, so that one day when they've hooked enough people on it, they're just going to increase the price 10 times, 20 times. They can realistically ask whatever they want. Because if these companies are already hooked on AI, what are they going to do? Are they going to try to hire 200 devs in a few weeks? No. They're going to pay the price, or they're going to have to slowly hire back devs and get rid of AI anyway. So what I think is, be careful with how you use AI. AI is a learning tool, an education tool. Don't fall into this whole agentic AI, I'm an AI developer, prompt engineer, send my agents to go and do this and that. Whatever people may tell you, it's not a good idea. Learn how to be a real developer, how to solve problems yourself, how to really think for yourself, how to program, A lot of developers nowadays, they forgot how to program because AI just does everything. That's a terrible thing to think about, because it's not about remembering the syntax. It never was. It's about problem solving. It's about coming up with creative, brand new solutions that are efficient, solutions that are scalable, that are understandable. And it's about conveying those ideas to other people. If you just tell AI, hey, here's the brief, go do that, what are you really doing? You're just sitting there smacking your keyboard. You're staring at the screen of AI working 8 hours a day. Eventually, you're not going to have a job. Okay? So my feel is stay far away from the agentic AI revolution and work like a real developer. Learn these skills from the ground up. Understand the fundamentals. You don't want to be a senior developer who can't answer a simple question that every graduate should know, and you have to prompt Claude to figure it out. You want to be the knowledgeable one, the one where people think, wow, this is a really knowledgeable, good developer that brings a lot to the company. Use AI as an education tool to accelerate learning and understanding, not as a doing tool, right? That's the important part. Now, I hope that this video, you find this useful and it aids in your journey for finding a job. And everyone out there, good luck. If you have a degree, it really is possible if you do these steps and you put in the effort. A lot of people think that just getting the degree is good enough. It's not, okay? We live in a country where the unemployment rate is very high, and getting the degree is the bare minimum, all right? You're like everyone else that graduates then. You need to go above the pack. You need to put in that extra effort outside of university, okay? And learn those skills that will increase your chances. Like I say, it's a statistics game. Every day you're trying to better yourself and make yourself a better candidate that people can eventually not say no to. And taking all this into account, please do not neglect your marks at university. Regardless of what other people say, your marks is important because the top companies want the best marks. And if you don't have the best marks, you have to settle for a lesser company. This could cut into your monthly salary by 5,000 to 10,000 Rand every month. By just having the best marks cum laude, you could increase your monthly salary to 10,000 Rand more than what you would have gotten, okay? And this is obviously because then you could get to the best companies that obviously pay more. So, you know, it all depends on how much money you want, but if you genuinely cannot get the best marks, that's okay. Upskill yourself as much as possible and you will still get a good job. Don't give up. You can still work yourself up with experience elsewhere. All right. Now, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments down below, and I will answer every single one of them like I've been doing with all my videos. And thank you for watching.